through so many talks this week. I know the first thing that most people ask you to do is to take your cell phone and turn it off and hide it and put it in a bag and stomp on it and break it to pieces. I'm going to ask you to do just the opposite, if you would, please. Would you all reach into your pocket or your purse or your bag and pull out your phone and hold it in front of your head? If you would, please raise your phone up high. Thank you so much. Hold on, I'm counting for a second. 1, 2, yeah, Yes, everyone has a smartphone here with them. Some people have 2. If you would, please, your smartphone is esteemed guest at my keynote today. Will you please keep it out and present, because you will have an opportunity to use it as I speak in my keynote today. Thank you very much. Because your smartphone is such an intrinsic part of our lives nowadays, how many of you feel that your smartphone is the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning? Show of hands, please. For better or for worse? Yes.
Show of phones.
Show of hands or show of phones, he says. How many of you look at your phone the last thing you do before you go to bed at night? This is such a part of our lives that phones actually have nightstand mode now as developers that you can develop for. Your smartphone is expected to be the first thing you look at in the morning when you wake up. It's expected to be the last thing you look at before you go to bed. It's such an intrinsic part of our lives that we simply expect it to be with us at all times. And what's especially interesting about these smartphones is, as developers, we spend most of our time with 101 keys and a mouse, don't we? Do you have 101 keys and a mouse on your smartphone? No. So we want to think about how we interact with our smartphone. Think about all the ways we touch our phone. There's no keyboard on our phone, right? It's just glass. So we're typing on glass, we're tapping on glass so much of the time. But did you know that it's so much more than just a tap? It's a tap and it's a drag, it's a double tap. It's a pinch and a stretch. It's a swipe right. It's a pull down to refresh. Do any of you 2-finger double tap on your phone? Do any of you 3-finger triple tap on your phone? There's a whole language we use to interact with our phones. As a matter of fact, as you're talking to your phone with your fingers, if you were to pull the phone away, it would almost look like sign language, wouldn't it, as you're talking to your phone? You have a very rich language of gestures that you use to interact with your phone. And that's just using your fingers. How many of you talk to your phone? Now, not talk to people on your phone. I mean, talk to your phone. Yes? How many of you walk into a room where there is no one present and you simply begin talking and expect something to happen? We used to call that insanity, didn't we? Now we call it cutting-edge technology. There is so much we do to talk to our phones that's not talking to other humans. This is just yet another way that we interact with the technology in our life. How many of you are developers in here right now? How many of you talk to your text editor or your IDE as you're programming? I've heard you. I've never heard such nasty words in my life. Of course, as developers, we talk to our IDE, we talk to our text editors. Did you know now that if you enable the new keyword accessibility.voice.keyword activation, you can now in VS Code say, "Hey code," and begin having a conversation with your IDE. I would ask that you be more polite to your IDE than you have in the past, now that you know that your IDE is listening and might actually answer back. Voice has become quite an intrinsic way we interact with technology. And vision. I don't need to ask who looks at their phone. Of course, we look at our phone almost incessantly, don't we? Did you know that your phone is watching you as much as you are watching your phone? There are many ways that your phone watches you as you are watching your phone. I hear people say, "Oh, I don't use facial recognition on my phone. It's too easy to crack. I could just hold up a simple paper photograph to my phone and it would trick my phone." That's not the case at all. We're going to find that when your phone is looking at you, it's doing an incredibly sophisticated three-dimensional topographical map of your face as you are looking at your phone and interacting with you. There's quite a lot of sophistication going on with vision. So this simple slab of glass that we have in our pocket, we interact with through sign language, through our voice, and through the simple act of looking at our phone. I would like you to take your phone right now, if you would, please. If you're iPhone users, get into settings, open up your settings and look at Face ID and passcode. Please do. If you're an iPhone user, pull it out. If you're an Android user, please pull out your Android phone. I can see you. You're not pulling out your phones right now. I can see you. I'm watching you as you're watching me. Pull out your phone, please, if you're an Android user, and go under face recognition. If you're an iPhone user and you're under the Face ID and passcode setting, you can see that you can use your face to unlock your phone. You can use your face to make purchases from the iTunes store. You can use your face to authorize credit card transactions when you're in the grocery store. You can use it to autofill passwords. And do you see other apps? If you're in your iPhone and you're in this Face ID setting, tap in other apps if you would. What other apps do you have loaded on your phone that are using your face? I had a woman once say, "What does Domino's Pizza need to know about my face in order to order a pizza?" If you're on an Android phone and you're looking at the facial recognition portion of your settings right now, do you notice that your Android phone is looking at you? Do you see how your Android phone can require you to have your eyes open in order to interact with it? Can you see on your iPhone that your iPhone will check for attention before dimming the display or expanding a notification or for lowering the volume? Your phone is truly watching you as you're watching your phone. This is a two-way relationship you have with this piece of glass that is with you from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed. It's with you throughout the day. It's an ever-present part of your technology experience. As you install new software on your laptop, as you install new software on your tablets or on your phone, you get presented with screens like this. We've seen these accessibility screens. And what's interesting is when people hear the word accessibility, for some reason they hear the word disability. But disability appears nowhere on the screen at all. Accessibility, the root of this is simply how are we going to access this piece of technology? And it says right here that we can access it through vision, we can access it through touch, we can access it through hearing. Accessibility is simply how we access the technology in our life. And I like calling this multi-sensory architecture because it really is about delighting all of your senses, not just one. So many times as developers, we build one-dimensional user experiences that delight one of our senses, but ignore the other senses, or sometimes actively hostile to the other senses. Now, today we're only going to discuss the ways you interact with your phone through your eyes, through your ears, and through your fingers, through your hands. I won't ask you to raise your hand. Do any of you smell your phone? No. Do any of you taste your phone? Please don't answer. I don't want to know. You are more than welcome to interact with your phone using whatever senses you have available to you. I'll be focusing on eyes and ears and fingers. This is multi-sensory architecture. And if you don't believe that you use all of your senses as you interact with technology, let me go in real quickly and play a video for you. All right? One moment, let me play this for you. It's a very short video. I'll check back in with you at the end of this video. Let me know what you think. Thank you. What did you think? Are there any questions? Can we proceed? Yes, that was on purpose. Thank you so much, sir. So let me try it again with sound on. Perhaps that would help, yes? Watching video is truly a multi-sensory experience. I only gave you one of your senses. Let me give you another. Let me know what you think this time.
Hola, me llamo Scott Davis. Lo siento, no hablo español, solo palabras.
What do you think? Any questions? Shall we move on now?
Muy bien.
Es muy bien. Oh, muchas gracias. How many of you speak Spanish in here?
Yeah.
Daniel Hinojosa speaks Spanish in here right now. He is my unit tester. He'll make sure about all this. All right, so I gave you visuals, and you were not happy with it. I gave you audio, and you were still not happy. You're a very needy audience. Do you realize that? Yes? Would you like me to turn on closed captioning? Would that help? Yes? All right. So I'll add a third sense to this. Here we go.
Hola, me llamo Scott Davis. Lo siento, no hablo español, solo palabras.
Now you can clearly understand what I was saying, right?
Claro.
How many more senses can I delight with you right now? I'm all out of senses with you. Now, I did play a trick with you. I mean that way. Closed captioning are captions that you can close. Hence the name. Closed captions are also a text representation of the audio that you were hearing. You're hearing Spanish audio, so I provided you with Spanish captions to reflect the Spanish audio. If you don't speak Spanish, would you perhaps prefer subtitles instead? Perhaps I can give you English subtitles for the Spanish audio.
Hola, me llamo Scott Davis. Lo siento, no hablo español, solo palabras.
Is this finally clear? Yes? Just that simple example right there hopefully demonstrates to you that as end users, we use all of our senses that are available to us. When we as developers provide a one-dimensional user experience, hopefully you can see how unsatisfying that user experience is.
Hi, my name is Scott Davis. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, only words.
when we have all of our senses available, we sometimes take it for granted. We don't realize what's missing if we don't pay attention to all of the senses we use instead of some of them or one of them. So, we've talked about the sign language you use for your phones, the rich language of gestures you have to talk to your phone. Does your phone talk to you through the sense of touch as well? Is this a two-way communication? Does it reach out and poke you? Perhaps not. Are you familiar with haptic feedback? The buzz that your phone has. When are the times that your phone talks back to you through touch? When does your phone buzz? When you receive phone calls? When you receive texts? When you receive alerts? One of my favorite examples of haptic feedback is on my watch. When I'm using Apple Maps and I'm driving, my watch buzzes slightly on my wrist when it's time for me to turn. And as a matter of fact, my watch buzzes one way when it's time for me to turn left, and it buzzes a different way when it's time for me to turn right. There's a rich haptic language going on with Apple Maps and my phone and my watch. This haptic feedback is something that we use all the time. As JavaScript programmers, did you know this is literally a one line in JavaScript to make your phone vibrate? Did you know that this navigator.vibrate command is available in every browser on the planet? And this example right here is going to vibrate for 200 milliseconds, 0.2 of a second, go silent for 1/10 of a second, buzz for 0.2 of a second, go silent for 1/10 of a second, and so on. This is a one-liner for us as developers as we begin thinking about delighting all of the senses. Adding haptic feedback is there, it's available, it's free, it's waiting for you to take advantage. All right, this is your chance to pull out your iPhones and your Androids again, if you would, please. Pull out your phones. If you are an Apple user, would you go into your settings and look at sound and haptics? If you're an iPhone user, look for sound and haptics under settings. If you're an Android user, look for sound and vibrations. Android users, sound and vibrations. Apple users, sounds and haptics. We've talked about tapping on glass. It is very different than typing on a keyboard. On a physical keyboard, the key moves when you press it. Perhaps it clicks when you press it. There's a lot of sensations just by typing on a keyboard. You don't get that by typing on glass on your phone. So the iPhone suggests that if you go under sound and haptics and then keyboard feedback, it can play a sound as you tap on your keyboard. It can also provide a subtle buzz, provide subtle haptics as you type on your keyboard. As a matter of fact, I typically go in and turn off sound and turn on haptics. I don't need the click, click, click when I'm in a meeting or in a class, but that haptic feedback is sufficient for me to know that my phone and I are in sync. We're talking to each other. Android users, when you look under sound and vibrations, do you see that you can turn on vibrate while ringing? Do you see all the different ways your phone can interact with you when you've got an incoming call? Do you want to hear a sound? Do you want to have that haptic feedback? Do you want both? Yes? Your phone is using a variety of senses to interact with you. Not just one. Not just one. Have you ever tapped in thin air? Tapping in thin air, how could that possibly be a real user interaction? If you have an Apple Watch, though, you can tap in midair and your display will change. This works on an Apple Watch Series 9. If you don't have an Apple Watch Series 9, I happen to have a demonstration for you. Notice that as he taps, the screen changes. Do you see the blue icon up top, that hand icon up there? This is the watch's way of informing you that it's received that tap, and it will be changing the screen accordingly. So, tapping in thin air is an entirely valid way of interacting with your devices. I'm not a fan of the term artificial intelligence, but I am a fan of the term machine learning. And when you are tapping in thin air, you are seeing machine learning in action. There are actually dedicated hardware chips on this phone that's paying attention. And what it's doing is it's focusing on the accelerometer, on the gyroscope, on the heart sensor. As you reach out and tap with your fingers, there are minute changes in blood flow that your watch is detecting in order to give you this feature. That is artificial intelligence right there. This is artificial intelligence on your wrist. You are using it every day. But what if you don't have a fancy new Series 9 Apple Watch? What if instead you have an Apple Vision Pro? Did you know by attending today, every delegate receives their own Apple Vision Pro? Reach under your chair right now. Congratulations. No, you don't believe me, do you? No, okay, all right. Well, how about I play you a video instead of how if you have an Apple Vision Pro, their VR goggles, you can literally tap in thin air with no watch whatsoever and get the same experience.
Apple Vision Pro has built-in accessibility features to support your needs, plus new features unique to the device. You can turn them on when you first set up the device, or anytime in settings. Here are some ways to personalize your experience. In the home view, look at Settings, and then tap your fingers together to open it. Look at the sidebar on the left side of the window, and then pinch your fingers and gently flick up to scroll down. Now select Accessibility. Let's explore some accessibility features specific to Apple Vision Pro. While looking at the accessibility settings on the right side of the window, scroll down to the Physical and Motor section. Select Interaction.
If that wasn't an actual product you can go out and buy, I would suggest to you that's science fiction. These VR goggles from Apple have at least 3 sets of cameras that we saw in that video. As you put on the goggles, there's one set of outward-facing cameras that takes in the room and overlays what it needs to on top of it. There's a second set of cameras that are inward-facing that are watching your eyes. Did you hear him say, look to the left and gesture, look to the right and gesture? There are inward-facing cameras that are tracking your eye movement, and based on where you're looking on the scene, that is where your focus exists. But then when they said, in thin air, attached to nothing, even without a watch on your wrist, can you scroll up and scroll down? Can you click to select elements in there. There's a third camera that is facing your hand, so in a very natural way, you can make gestures in the air, and the onboard artificial intelligence, machine learning, silicon is taking these gestures in the air and matching them with a scroll gesture or a tap gesture or a commit gesture. We are absolutely in the era where we don't need to make physical contact with anything anymore in order to interact richly with the technology in our lives. Amazing times we're living in, isn't it? So let's turn around and revisit once again sight and hearing and touch. We've just revisited touch, and we see how artificial intelligence, machine learning plays a factor in that. With vision, artificial intelligence and machine learning plays a fact in that. Google has a project called Media Pipe. It is completely free, completely open source, and Media Pipe is on-device machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's on-device machine learning for everyone. Everyone, including Android and iOS, web, desktop, Internet of Things devices. This software is free, it's open source, and it runs across all platforms. And it allows you to do things like facial recognition, just recognizing faces in the frame. But then it does more than that as well. It can do detailed facial mapping as well. It can do simple gesture recognition, so it can tell when you're giving a thumbs up or a peace sign or any other symbols you might be giving. So it can do gesture recognition. It can do pose recognition as well, so it can look at an entire person's body and see what pose they've adopted. But I'd be remiss if we didn't do a live demo of this. So here I am right now talking to you. I do look a little different, don't I? Everything. Let's come in here right now and let's change from an avatar renderer to a grid renderer so you can get a better idea of what's going on. Now, this is obviously real time. I'm on a Macintosh. I'm using Google Chrome, but this technology would work in Firefox. It would work in Microsoft Edge. It would work on my Android phone and my iPhone as well. You can see what this is doing is taking a detailed 3D topographical map of my face in real time, almost 300 points. It's detecting eyes. It can tell if I'm blinking my eyes as I go. It can see my mouth. It doesn't map my tongue, but perhaps in the next version it will. The fact that all of these are here and just available to us to play with. The fact that you can use MediaPipe Studio to do simple object detection. This is a cat, this is a dog. To do image segmentation. Have you ever noticed how Zoom is allowed to give you virtual backgrounds? We now have that technology available to us for free, open source, written in JavaScript, runs across all your browsers. Gesture recognition and being able to come in here and demo these kinds of things, being able to see that this indeed can keep track of all the hands in the screen and all the gestures I happen to be using in order to do these kinds of things. This technology is not science fiction and it's not theoretical. It's right here, right now, open source, and available for us to use. Yeah? So, we've talked about how vision and AI now works. Let's take a look at this.
For many people with blindness or low vision, there hasn't always been an easy way to capture daily life.
One face cropped. Move your phone down. One face in frame. Hold for photo.
Dinner for one.
Hello.
One face and one pet in frame.
Look who's here.
Two faces in frame. Two faces.
Good morning.
Two faces.
First day in the new place.
Two faces. Two faces. Two faces in frame. Three faces in frame. Hold for photo.
Capture life, no matter how you experience it. Guided frame only on Google Pixel.
Isn't that just beautiful? Did you catch who was narrating that video? Stevie Wonder, the blind musician, the blind artist. Now, is this feature only available to you on the special accessibility edition of Android? Or is it available to you on every Android phone on the planet? Are these features available to you only in the disabled version of the iPhone? Or is this available to every iPhone user? This is just everyday technology. This is us right here, right now, using these kinds of things. So we've talked about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and touch. We've talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning and vision. Does artificial intelligence come in when it comes to hearing as well? Perhaps. Perhaps. When Steve Jobs introduced the original Macintosh on stage back in 1984, this is how he introduced the Macintosh.
But today, for the first time ever, I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I'd like to share with you an action I thought of the first time I made an IBM mainframe. Never trust a computer you can't with. Obviously I can talk, but right now I'd like to sit back and listen. So it is with considerable pride that I introduce a man who's been like a father to me, Steve Jobs.
What we just saw there was an example of speech synthesis. Text to speech. And text to speech has been with us since the very beginning, right? It certainly predates 1984. The ability to take written text and transform that into something we can hear is technology we use all the time. The next time you call a customer service number and someone or something tells you to press 1 to talk to sales, press 2 to talk to customer support, are you talking to a human there? You're talking to a computer using speech synthesis. And while getting your phone to vibrate is a one-liner, I apologize, getting your phone to talk to you is, in fact, 2 lines of JavaScript. Available to you in every browser on the planet. If you create a new speech synthesis utterance, if there is any justice in the world, the second line, you would utter that utterance, but you don't utter it. Unfortunately, you speak it, but that's okay as well. In 2 lines, you can truly have your browser say anything. And this is the simplest example. Once you start adding regions to that, you can have your browser speak anything in a Hindi accent, in a Tamil accent, in an American accent, in a British American accent, in a US American accent. There's obviously great nuance in this. So 2 lines for speech synthesis, but that's old news. That's been around for quite some time. What about speech recognition? Do you think your phone can understand what you say to it?
With voice control, you can navigate your iPhone and iPad with just your voice, which is helpful if you have limited mobility. We'll show you how to turn on voice control, how to use gesture commands, how to use overlays, and how to pause or turn off voice control. First, let's turn on voice control. You can ask Siri to turn on voice control, or you can turn it on in settings. Just scroll down and tap Accessibility. Then tap Voice Control and tap Set up voice control at the top of the screen. Voice control requires a short download before it's ready to use, but after that, it doesn't need Wi-Fi or cellular data to work. Now you can begin navigating your iPhone with just your voice. When voice control is turned on, a blue microphone appears in the top left corner of your screen. Let's check out some basic screen navigation commands. Go home. Swipe left. Swipe right. Open Notes. What can I say? This brings up a list of some of the most useful voice control commands. You can say, go back, to return to the previous screen.
Isn't that something? There's full parity. Any gesture that you have with your finger, there's a way you can express that same gesture with your voice. Swipe left, swipe right, pull down, go home. What can I say? Isn't that the killer feature right there? What can I say? So many people get intimidated when they buy their first smart speaker because that's what they think. They think, what can I say? And the problem with that smart speaker is you get paralyzed by the world of the infinite. Yes? Because it's really an unbounded grammar. There's no limit to what you could possibly say. The only limit is what that speaker can understand. So if I tried to say something like, hey Siri, what was that one movie with that one actor who was with that other actress that I really liked back when I was a kid? There's no hope of Siri finding that, right? That's an example of unbounded grammar. But voice control on your phone is not unbounded grammar, it's in fact bounded grammar. And when you look at conversational UIs, conversational user interfaces, and you limit the words that people can use, it ends up being highly accurate and highly usable because they can zoom in and optimize on just the words. So if you have a bit of an accent or you are outside of that bell curve of what it's expecting to hear, you have a much higher likelihood of being heard and understood when you're using these bounded grammars. Swipe up, swipe down, go home. It can listen to those things. So if you think about the ways you're most successful communicating with your smart speakers, hey Siri, play a song. Hey Siri, play an album. Hey Siri, play an artist. Hey Siri, play a genre. You can see that most of the highly successful ways you interact with these speakers conversationally is through bounded grammars. I can play, I can pause, I can skip, I can next. These are a limited set of keywords that I can use to interact. Speech recognition is a fantastic use of artificial intelligence, a fantastic use of machine learning. And when this first was available to us, we had to round trip from the device to the cloud and back. That provided a poor user experience because of the latency. It provided a poor user experience because of the lack of privacy as well. All modern devices handle this on device. Anytime I'm speaking to an Apple device, I have an onboard machine learning chip. It does all of that on board. When I'm talking to an Android device, it has an onboard ML silicon on there to manage those kinds of things. The way you can test this is get into airplane mode and see how much you can still interact with your device. If you can still do those kinds of things when there's no internet connection, that's a pretty good indication that this is all happening privately, securely, on the piece of glass in your hand. So this is multisensory architecture right here. But how does this behave in the real world? I've got another example for you.
I hesitated for a few seconds, and I realised the enormity of it, what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time, I was able to call my son.
This is Matthew. He likes to swim in cold water.
After a swim, you feel alive.
Like really, really cold water.
I also swam across the English Channel.
But that's another story. Matthew is deaf.
People think if I got a hearing aid on, I could hear everything. And that's not true. I lip read most of the time. I have two boys, and they're both very important part of my life.
This is Matthew's youngest son.
Hi, I'm Harry.
He lives in Hong Kong and plays rugby.
I always want to keep in touch with him. Before, I need to communicate with him through Zoom or WhatsApp. I would try and lip read him, but it's really hard because it's not 3D, it's a flat screen.
It's actually...
When I got the Google Picture phone, because the live capture Peter, Harry was the first person I phoned. It was incredible. And we were talking for about half an hour. All of a sudden, he said,
Dad, do you realise this is the first time we've talked on the phone?
I was speechless for 3-4 seconds, and it realised what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was able to call my son. It was wonderful. What you going to do? Mobile phone been around for a long time, and yet hadn't been really fully accessible till now. That's what included me. You don't feel left out. Everybody feels the same.
Isn't that just lovely? Matthew was a colleague of mine at ThoughtWorks. This is absolutely a true story. He's the head of accessibility, global accessibility for ThoughtWorks. When we talk about this technology and the potential, I think it's the real world use cases that touch us the most. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that video and I have to wipe a tear out of my eye every time I watch it. I'm 54 years old as well. I have a son. That video speaks to me. This, my friends, is multisensory architecture. This is the state of the art. This should be our expectation for what technology can do for us. Technology should be able to delight all of our senses, not just one. We should be infuriated when we experience a one-dimensional technology experience. We should be infuriated. Technologists are letting us down by not delighting all of our senses. Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee said the power of the web is in its universality, access by everyone regardless of disability is an essential aspect. That's moving. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for all of us in here today. I hope we're up to the challenge. In addition to defining the HTML specification, in addition to defining the CSS specification, in addition to defining the HTTP specification, the XML specification, and so many more, The World Wide Web Consortium also provides the Web Content Accessibility Guideline, WCAG, one of the worst acronyms in technology, but we do with what we can. WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Did you know that HTML is fully accessible as defined? Did you know that HTML has always been fully accessible as defined? The first time you could add an image to your web page was in the HTML 2.0 specification back in the early 1990s. If you go back and look at the HTML2 specification and look up images, it says right there, for every image, you should provide a source for the image, and you should provide alt text. Alternate text, so if that image cannot be displayed for any reason, there's still text there. If that image can't be displayed for every reason, or a user can't see that image for any reason, there's an alternate for them so they can fully experience that same content as you do as well. Did you know that over half of all images on the web today are inaccessible? 2/3 of all images on the web have no alt text. Some of those images have an alt text of img0001.jpj. Is that good alt text? No, of course not. Of course not. This is our challenge. When I'm building a physical building in physical space, there are accessibility laws I'm required to follow. And many people complain saying, oh, I have to provide extra parking spots. I have to provide special bathroom stalls so people can use this. Is going to the bathroom a special need? Or is it something that we all experience? But this is where the metaphor falls down, because what if you were presented with a building that already had accessible bathroom stalls, and as a developer, you bricked over those stalls and you disabled the accessibility that was inherent in the platform? This is what we're facing today. This is what we're facing today. People think that there's something extra I have to do in order to make my web pages accessible. In fact, it's just the opposite. You need to get out of the way. You need to let the native accessibility of the platform shine through and not actively suppress the accessibility that already exists on the platform that we professionally develop on. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines go through a number of different things for us to look for. As developers, we see things like, oh, video alternatives. Oh, so it's important that if I have a video, it's also important that I provide closed captions. Did you know that 85% of all Facebook videos are watched with closed captions on and the sound off? That percentage is higher for TikTok. That percentage is higher generationally as well. My 22-year-old son watches videos with closed captions on exclusively. He grew up watching Japanese anime. And there are two different ways you can watch Japanese anime, animated films, right? You can watch it with dubbed audio, so it's an English soundtrack to the Japanese visuals. But you know what the cool kids do? The cool kids aren't into dubs, they're into subs. The cool kids are into subtitles. So young Christopher watches the original Japanese visuals with the original Japanese audios and English subtitles. So he feels that gives him the fullest experience. Imagine if you're producing video for your website right now and you say, well, I never watch closed captions, so it must not be important. I don't even think to check for it. Generationally speaking, you've missed it. In addition to video alternatives, there need to be text alternatives. I consult for large clients. I had a client that was rolling out a new online shopping cart, 20,000 new items in the shopping cart, 20,000 new images of things, of products that they wanted people to buy. They happen to sell tractors. So I said, if someone is interested in buying a baseball hat with a green tractor on it, how do you suppose your potential consumers are going to find a baseball hat with a green tractor on it? Are they perhaps going to go into a web search engine and type in the words green baseball hat tractor? Does that sound like alt text to you? I said, if you are rolling out 20,000 new images in your catalog and you don't have 20,000 instances of alt text, that's what your potential buyers are most likely going to type in to a search engine in order to find this so they can buy this item. You must not be interested in sales then. You must not be interested in SEO, search engine optimization. I take a yes and approach to digital accessibility with all my clients. Yes, we should have alt text for all of our images because that's how we support our blind and low vision users. And we should have alt text on our images because that's how we support all of our other users as well. Yes, we should have closed captions on all of our videos to support our deaf and hard of hearing users. Yes, and we should have closed captions on all of our videos to support all of our other users as well. This is a concept called universal design. Universal design, which says the technology should work for everyone. If you go to apple.com/accessibility, for a long time they said, here at Apple, we don't make technology for some of the people or even most of the people. We make technology for all the people. That's universal design. These web content accessibility guidelines can be summarized like this. They say in order for your website to be compliant with the web content accessibility guidelines, your website must be perceivable, which means that the information must be presented in ways simply that they can perceive. And if you provide them with an image and they can't perceive that, they need alt text. If you provide them with a video and they can't perceive that, you need audio. And if they can't perceive that, you need subtitles. And if they can't perceive that, you need closed captions as well. The content on your website must be perceivable. It has to be available to all of the senses, not just one. The information on your website needs to be operable, not just through a keyboard and a mouse. We need to be able to tap on our glass. We need to be able to speak to it. We need to be able to look at it and use eye tracking and use gestures in thin air to be able to operate the technology in our lives. We need to be able to use all of our senses to operate this technology, not just one. In order for your website to match the web content accessibility guidelines, it needs to be understandable. The information in operation must be understandable across all of your senses. And it must be robust. And that is the challenge to you as developers. If you develop a website that is one-dimensional, that is weak, not robust. If you develop a user interface that only serves one of the senses, that's a good start, but you're not done yet. It's your challenge as web developers to make your technology robust. It's your challenge as developers to make sure your technology delights all of our senses, not just one. And that, my friends, is digital modernization through accessibility. Thank you so much for your time and attention.